The private hangar buzzed with tension as mechanics rushed around the grounded jet. The millionaire, Charles Whitford, paced impatiently, his frustration growing with every passing minute. His upcoming international meeting depended on this flight, yet no expert could figure out why the engine kept shutting down mid-diagnostic. Time was running out. The head engineer wiped sweat from his forehead. "Sir, we've checked everything. Fuel lines, compressors, sensors. Nothing makes sense." Charles's jaw tightened. The jet was new, worth millions, yet it sat there like a useless metal shell. The longer it stayed grounded, the more money he lost, and the angrier he became. In the corner, unnoticed, the night janitor quietly swept the floor. His name was Thomas Gray, a single dad who worked 2 jobs to raise his little boy. He kept his head down, did his work silently, and never interfered with the mechanics. But tonight, something about their struggle caught his attention. Thomas had been a mechanic years ago, before his wife passed away and life collapsed around him. With a baby to care for and bills piling up, he took any job he could find. Nobody here knew his past. Nobody asked. He simply cleaned, swept, mopped, then went home to tuck his son in. But as he listened to the frustrated arguments, he heard something in the engine notes, something the specialists were missing. A faint, metallic stutter. A delayed ignition click. He paused his sweeping, eyes narrowing, memories of old engines flickering back like ghosts. Finally, he approached the head engineer cautiously. "Sir," he said softly, "I think your ignition timing sensor is misreading." The engineer blinked, momentarily offended. "The timing system isn't the issue," he snapped. "We've checked all that." Thomas nodded respectfully. "Maybe, but the sound it's making, I've heard it before. It's not the sensor, it's the wiring harness feeding it." The engineer rolled his eyes, but Charles overheard. Desperation overcame pride. "Let him try," the millionaire said. The room went silent. Thomas felt every mechanic's stare burning into him, but he stepped forward. He climbed the maintenance ladder, opened the access panel, and studied the wires with practiced precision. Within moments, he saw it. A barely visible corrosion ring hidden under insulation, small enough to escape regular inspection, but large enough to disrupt the timing signal. Thomas exhaled slowly. "There it is," he whispered. "This connection is failing under heat. The sensor reads wrong. The engine shuts itself down to avoid damage." The mechanics crowded around, shocked. It was a flaw that even seasoned technicians could have missed. Charles leaned in. "Can you fix it?" he asked. Thomas nodded. "I'll need a clean replacement harness and a few minutes." The millionaire snapped his fingers. Parts were rushed over instantly. For the first time, Thomas felt seen. With steady hands, he worked, stripping out the damaged wiring, fitting new connections, sealing them with careful precision. Every movement showed experience, years of practice hidden beneath a janitor's uniform. When he finished, he stepped back, breathing deeply. "Try it now," he said quietly. The head engineer restarted the diagnostics. The jet engine hummed to life, smooth, clean, perfect, not a single hiccup. The roar filled the hangar as the entire team stared, speechless. Charles turned toward Thomas, eyes wide with astonishment. "You did it. No one else could, and you just did it." Thomas wiped his hands on his cleaning cloth, embarrassed. "Just got lucky, sir." But Charles shook his head. "That wasn't luck. That was genius." The millionaire asked the engineers how they missed the flaw. None had an answer. Meanwhile, Thomas stepped back into the shadows, ready to return to his mop. But Charles wouldn't allow it. "Wait," he called. "What's your name?" "Thomas Gray," he replied. "I'm just the janitor." Charles stared at him. "Not anymore, you're not." Everyone went silent. Even the machines seemed to pause. "Someone with your skill shouldn't be sweeping floors." Thomas shifted nervously. "I have a son. This job gives me steady hours. I can't risk losing that." Charles smiled, genuinely, not arrogantly. "Then bring him with you tomorrow. There's a room here for employees' children, and from this moment forward, you're the new lead diagnostic engineer." Gasps rippled through the hangar. The mechanics who once ignored him stared in disbelief. Thomas stood frozen, wiping tears before they could fall. He had worked silently for years, unseen, unheard, surviving paycheck to paycheck. And now, here he was, offered a future he thought he'd never have again. The next morning, Thomas arrived with his little boy, Ethan. The child clung to his father's leg, shy but curious. The staff welcomed them with newfound respect. Ethan's eyes grew wide when he saw the enormous jet. "Daddy, you fix that?" he whispered. Thomas knelt and nodded. "Yeah, buddy, I did." Charles approached, smiling warmly. "Ethan, your father saved my entire business yesterday. He sees things others don't. He's a genius." The boy beamed with pride. For the first time in years, Thomas felt like he could breathe, not just as a janitor surviving, but as a father building a future. Over the next weeks, Thomas proved himself again and again. He solved problems the engineers struggled with, taught his team new techniques, and redesigned safety protocols. Word spread quickly. Other companies requested consultations, but Thomas stayed loyal, grateful to the man who believed in him when no one else did. Soon, he was earning enough to move his son into a better home, buy proper clothes, and give Ethan the childhood he deserved. People who once walked past Thomas without noticing now greeted him with respect, and every time he passed the jet he fixed, he smiled silently. He had uncovered the secret that saved the millionaire's jet, but the millionaire had uncovered something far greater, the brilliance of an invisible man who only needed one chance.